This video is brought to you by High Button Sports, Atlantic Canada's leading company in sports entertainment, podcast, mic'd up videos, live streaming, and much more. Make sure to check them out at hightbuttonsports.ca. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Scotian Canadian channel. I'm here with my good buddy Tyler. He's a diehard Leafs fan, and we are going to go head to head, Montreal Canadiens and Toronto Maple Leafs. And since I talk all Habs on this channel, I figured we'll start with the Leafs. So Kyle Dubas had a lot of work ahead of him coming into this offseason after they bowed out of the qualifying round early and made some interesting moves. Lots of moves. There's no shortage of things to talk about. So I'm going to throw it over to Tyler to get us started.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for having me, first of all. It was, he had a lot of work to do this offseason after another first round, if you want to call it first round, another first round exit. It's getting discouraging now. But I love what he did with bringing in, first of all, the captain trade.
Yeah.
I was very, very surprised that he got a first round draft pick for that. I was not expecting to get a first round draft pick for Kapanen. And from all accounts, that Hollander kid, 20 years old, second round pick. I think Craig Bunton had it rated as a B-list prospect. So if he ends up being a bottom six guy, a third line center, fourth line center, it is what it is.
I think one of the prospects in that trade, they didn't qualify, and then he's gone.
Yeah, Evan Rodriguez, they did not qualify, and there was another person, but Evan Rodriguez actually signed back with Pittsburgh.
Right.
So he went
So it
back.
ends up being those two pieces for Kapanen.
Exactly, yes.
I will say right quick, with them getting the first round pick, it's a damn good thing they did because Kapanen was a restricted free agent, so Pittsburgh was able to sign him for a significant amount of time.
Yes.
It's like if you think about at the trade deadline, you'd pay up a first round pick for a rental player. Well, they just paid up a first round pick for a player they have for at least a couple of years. What did he sign for in Pittsburgh?
Well, I'm not sure the whole.
I can't recall. I think it was a couple years.
Because I know he had three. I think he had three. It was a $3 million. I know he's around 3.5 cap, and maybe a little less. And another thing is Pittsburgh's the one drafting.
Yeah,
right. So if there's any team that knows him better than the Maple Leafs, it would be the Penguins.
Yeah, that's right.
So and he's going to add much needed speed to their team. So for both teams, I think it works out half decent. For the Leafs, in the offseason, TJ Brody, I think that was a huge, huge signing from the Maple Leafs, a top four defenseman. Obviously, we all know Tyson Barrie and Cody Ceci were a disaster, an absolute joke. So I think that's huge. I think he doesn't have to put up points. He's just going to be a solid top four defenseman. By all accounts, he was a great D partner with Mark Giordano. Giordano won a Norris, so, he's rod shotgun.
Yeah.
Wayne Simmons, the Wayne train. I think that was going to be a nice little pickup. Physicality, something that the Leafs so desperately lacked, and especially losing now Kyle Clifford to free agency. That's a need they desperately need to address. Dutch picked the Zach Bogosian pickup. I thought that was nice. 5th, 6th defenseman. Rough, tough. That's going to be a huge, huge add to the defense, as long as the expectations aren't through the roof and where he was drafted and all that nonsense. He is what he is, 5th, 6th defenseman. And it's what the Leafs really do need, some depth at defense, so we don't get to see Marty Marincin no more. Because I think everybody's sick of that guy.
They just keep bringing him back over and over again.
Well, that's what I don't understand.
I know, and it's consistently unimpressed with him, and they bring him back every time. It's wild.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It really is. It's unbelievable.
Before we go too far ahead here, you touched on a couple things I want to mention. So Barrie and CC not working out defensively. It was a mess, but I don't think you can ignore that Barrie had how many points for the Leafs?
I believe he got in the 50s, 50 points.
Yeah, that's a lot for a defenseman, right? And didn't he struggle early and then
I don't think he didn't score his first. Well, Babcock didn't have him on the first power play unit.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first move Sheldon Keefe made because I believe it was Sheldon Keefe's first night as the head coach in Arizona.
And then
Barrie scored the power play goal.
Yeah, that's right.
So
from there.
So that was still
That's a good point. Just bringing that up, just the offense is subtracted from the blue line. But I guess you hope you get some of that back with Brody, and you really should get some of it back.
And my thing with the Maple Leafs is, I'm not worried about Maple Leafs defensemen putting up points.
Right.
There's a reason that forward group gets paid so much money. You don't need to bring in defensemen to work the power play and all that stuff. Morgan Riley's there. He can do that. Their whole Travis
points regardless.
Exactly. Yeah. And the kid, the Mikko Lehtinen, the kid they got from Finland.
Yeah.
In the KHL right now. 13 points in 10 games this year. Last year, 49 points in 60 games. So clearly he should be able to work a power play. I want big defensemen, not enough to do big, just guys that are worried about their own end first. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
Get a good exit pass out the zone. Don't go off the glass and out.
Yeah.
That's all I care about for their defense core.
Yeah, it's been a need for you guys for a long time. That responsible veteran.
Yes, exactly.
Especially since Ron Hainsey left, and he was only there for a short time too. So
yeah.
And something else I want to bring up right quick. Brody, his contract. Now, ideally, this works out for the Leafs, especially in terms of their defense. But his contract is what, 4 years, $5 million per year.
Yeah.
With no trade clauses at the beginning, but then it kind of loosens up at the end, I think.
Yeah.
So, if it doesn't work out, man, that's a contract that you're stuck with.
I think the good thing is with Tyson Barrie, for instance, and I mean it's hindsight, but like if Barrie doesn't put up points, even with Colorado, was he really effective? I think there was you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cody Ceci, I kind of thought he could be a half decent player. He's just a disaster. He is just not I was so disappointed in him. But where Brody can such a good skater, and where he played with Mark Giordano, like I don't think the expectations are going to be nearly as high as what it was for Tyson Barrie last year.
Right.
And I don't think that was fair for Tyson Barrie, but I thought they were going to get a guy who's going to come in and almost score a point per game.
Gotcha.
Right? So now it's not.
So Brody comes in, you're not expecting him to, be on the highlight reel putting up points.
No.
You just want to see him be responsible.
Well, I think he's going to play with Riley. So
Yeah.
that's what now Mo can go do what he has to do. And he knows that role already, Brody, with Giordano, right? So he knows his role. He's a professional.
Yeah, I think you might agree with me here. Like, a big thing, I think, for Tyson Barrie coming into, or not Tyson Barrie, TJ Brody coming into Toronto, it's going to take a little while for the fit to make sense.
Oh,
I know he's a lefty, but he plays on the right side. He's got to find a partner. And, maybe that's Riley. And but if he happens to make some mistakes early on, wouldn't want to see the Leafs fan base worried right away out of the gate and, oh, shit, we're stuck with this guy now and blah, blah, blah. Because he could settle in over time. It kind of happened with Ben Sherratt in Montreal. Yes. His first, month and a half, 2 months with the Habs were, shaky. But then as the season went on, then especially in the return to play, he was a beast. So...
And that's the Leafs do. The Leafs normally fans, their whipping boy is normally a defenseman.
Right.
It always is and most likely always will be. So, yeah, but he's from the area. So he knows, he grew up a Toronto fan. He probably knows what comes with being a Leafs player and all that stuff. Yeah. So it's not like, Tyson Barrie's from Vancouver. Yeah. Plays, goes and plays for Colorado. Not a huge hockey market. And that's another thing. Brody comes from a Canadian market.
Yeah, he's used to the media.
That's right, right? So that's another thing that could be, a huge factor in that.
Yeah, that's all I got on that.
Yeah. And actually, that's who Dubas was going to make the initial trade for Kadri last year was for.
Oh, really?
And then,
TJ Brody.
Yeah, and then Kadri said no with no trade, and that's
wow. So they got their man.
Yeah, he was the initial guy. Yeah. So yeah,
right on. Wayne Simmons, I thought that was a good pickup. You brought that up, and it's just for 1 year, but added toughness, and who knows? Maybe he can rebound. He says he's in the best shape of his last few years, at least anyway. So
and I think the thing with Simmons is he doesn't strike me as a guy he knows his role. He's not going to go there and demand extra things and expect to be in the first unit or the second unit. I think Wayne knows what his role is going to be there. Now they're local guy. And I mean, these local guys, they're diehard Leafs fan growing up, right? Yeah. So I mean, at some point, and I think he's the guy, he'll do anything. And his first quote.
It must be nice to have hometown players want to come sign with your team. Must be lovely.
Well, yeah, that's baffling to me because, I mean, I feel like the Montreal and the Quebec fans would love a Quebec player more than the Toronto and local guys would love.
Right.
Because there's so many of them, they're superstars all around the league.
I mean, they tend to be, the whipping boy too here and there, but as you can expect, it's kind of happened to Drouin a little bit. But he kind of deserves it in a way, so that is what it is. But
yeah, so I mean, being a local guy, I think that says a lot. I mean...
Yeah, coming in. Yeah.
You played for the Habs.
Wanting to
give
be
it a little more, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, dream come true every night, right?
That's nothing. And
dreaming about it in your PJs.
Now he's got a family now and all that. And his first quote, but one of the things he said in his first interview was, if anything happens to the boys, I'll be the first to jump in.
Yeah.
So right there,
you guys, you guys need that too. Little answer for Josh Anderson.
As long as he doesn't do what David Clarkson did.
Yeah.
That's Josh Anderson.
For the division is adjusting to Josh Anderson joining our join the Atlantic, I think.
Yeah, well, it's funny because the whole division was always the Bruins being. Then I mean, look, Tampa at least got a little tougher. The Habs defense is tough as I mean, it's a little different hockey now.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fun.
It is gonna be fun.
So is that what we got for the Leafs?
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy Vesey, another local guy.
Yeah.
His brother was a part of the Leaf system. His dad worked for the Maple Leafs, so just depth to replace. I mean, Andreas Johansson, that's a tough loss.
Yeah, that is a tough loss. What was the return for Johansson?
Joey Anderson, 3rd round pick.
Joey Anderson.
Yeah, played World Juniors for the Americans. So by all accounts, he's going to be a good half-decent player. We'll see what it turns out.
It's pretty unbelievable. The talk was, who do you move, either Kapanen or Janssen, to clear space, and now both of them are gone.
Well, I think a lot of people thought Kerfoot, but it's like you can't move a third
center.
line. Exactly. No. You can't move a center unless you have a plan. No. And Spezza was not going to be the third line center.
No, and Kerfoot's a great player, and he plays with some attitude.
Yeah.
And definitely the right moves were going with getting,
Yeah, I think that was the guy got to keep him. You got to keep him.
Yeah. So... My kind of view on... I think the Leafs had a great offseason, about as good as it could have been in terms of the position they came into this offseason in. Yeah. It's just unfortunate that a team that was expected to be a cup contender the last couple of years is now selling off valuable pieces for futures. Now, do they adjust with the futures they acquired? And they did make some signings to replace some of the offense. So you think about Janssen leaving, 20-goal scorer, Kapanen leaving, 20-goal scorer. 40 goals there. Then we talked about Barry's offense off the back end. So have they improved, or have they stayed the same?
Well, we all know how, as Leafs fans, we thought Andreas Johansson, like you said, 20 goal scorer, good player. Johansson only played 43 games last year. So him walking, it's like we kind of knew. I think what Leafs fans know is Mikheyev. Until he cut his wrist there last year, he was a beast, and he's a big body too, right? So but
he's unsigned right now.
No, and I think I seen a report today that he'll be get between 1 and 1 point. I think it was 1.5 in arbitration.
Makes sense
because there's no argument. The arbitrator makes what it is, and that's what you get signed. So they will though have to make another switch eventually because
they're already down to how much cap space
0.
the Leafs have? Yeah, 0.
Or 400,000.
They might have a little bit because of the Janssen,
So
I mean, they're going to have to make some space. So there's more depth to get Mikheyev signed, and Dermott's not signed yet either, right?
No, and Dermott's the one that kind of... my gut feeling says either Dermott or Justin Hall may not start next year with the Maple Leafs.
Right. So how do you get rid of Justin Hall? $2 million deal. I think he's got a no-trade clause, too.
He's a
Kyle Dubas gives out so many no-trade clauses.
I don't like those either. They don't... Dude. Especially when you're... But I don't know. I think Justin Hall is a guy that you could probably have no problem... Cap space is, a big deal. So even if you're trading Justin Hall for a 5th or 4th, whatever it may be, 3rd round pick, it's like, you're losing a player. But that cap space is very, very valuable. Yeah. But I think a lot of that depends on where Rasmus is in his development with the Maple Leafs. Because...
he could save that Leafs decor.
Well, I was looking at it.
Really?
He's only played 60 professional games in North America. He's only still 20 years old. So he might be one of those guys, like you said earlier, don't want them to be the whipping boys and all that. He might be kind of just shelter him, tuck him away.
In, right?
Yeah, right. We'll see what this Lettinen guy does.
I mean, Sandin, his AHL numbers offensively are incredible, almost record-breaking. Yeah. It's like the list of players that have done what he did at a young age, right?
Yes.
Is You actually showed me that because I didn't realize how good of a prospect Sandin was. You got to think his offensive game flourishes, over the next 1 to 2 years.
He's a great puck mover. Already last year, the few games played for Maple Leafs, he can move the puck very, very nicely.
So what about defensively?
Well, that's my thing. That's what I was getting to earlier. If he's another guy that's going to come up and be more like an offensive guy, a wheel and deal type of guy, maybe move Travis Dermott then. Right. Because Dermott's the same player. Maybe keep Justin Hall because he's more of a stay-at-home, bigger body.
And he's a right shot.
Yes, win some puck battles, which the Leafs desperately need.
Yeah.
Travis Dermott has just been plagued by the injury there, his shoulder injury last year, come back, not getting the whole year. And I think that kid has so much skill. I don't know if he doesn't, I don't know if it's smart, just needs more experience, what it may be. But maybe he might be the guy now we talk it out.
Right.
Where if you have Rasmus come up, you have Mo. Yeah. Maybe he's the guy that's...
Yeah. The thing with defensemen is they take so much time to develop, right? And you don't know when they're going to reach that level and stay there, you know?
And he hit, I wouldn't say a home run because, it was Lou's guy and Lou's made Zaitsev, I think it was 6 years he gave him after so many games in the NHL. But the Leafs have had kind of success in finding these guys in Europe that have been undrafted, bringing them over here, making somewhat of an impact, right? So
Yeah.
hopefully that Lightning defenseman, that guy can come over and make an impact.
Right. So tell me, like, are the Leafs? Do you feel like the Leafs roster is better this year? Do you feel like are they gonna? What's your outlook for where they're gonna
I
head
think
in
they're
the
going to be
next season?
better than they are last year, just for the simple fact. I mean, Morgan Riley missed 35 games last year.
Right.
That's a lot of change, especially for a team that's just slim at defenseman. And then you chuck in Jake Muzzin missing 29 games.
Yeah.
I mean, those two were the only two legitimate.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
Muzzin's clearly your best defensive
defensive
defenseman.
defenseman. He has a little physicality, a little intimidation. So losing those two for so many games last year, I think, was such a big loss. And a little bit there was together.
Yeah.
So I mean, with those guys, I mean that defense is in shambles as is. So running out with those two, yeah. So I think they will be better than last year.
So if they're healthy, you get an upgrade.
Yeah, and that streak, that point last year, the boys could not buy a win.
Right.
That was another one where
Some
hopefully
adversity, coaching change.
and well, that's another thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. Now this is a whole lot of time now with Sheldon Keefe. He should know all his players now. Now they should know his system after a training camp. So that's another factor you got to add into it.
Do you think he's? I don't know. Do you think he's kind of disappointed that some of the guys he won with in the AHL, the Calder Cup, are now gone? Or does he still have enough for that familiarity? And
I just think the Calder Cup, the American Hockey League, I think is just such a totally different beast. I mean, we've seen a lot of good American Hockey League guys just put up ridiculous points, and then they come to the NHL, and it's like
right,
they're not what they are. So I mean, I think that might be a point if the Leafs organization would ever gave those guys a chance. And he would stress saying, no, these guys are... But the Leafs gave all these kids a chance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like any of them just got kicked to the curb. And I mean, trading off assets for picks, I mean, like I said, the cap space in itself is very, very, very valuable.
Yeah.
And I mean, from the guys they brought in, like, you're not losing a whole lot of points.
Right.
Right? So it's...
I mean, you'd have to hope you get 15 to 20 goals from Jimmy Vesey. You got to hope Simmons puts a few on the board more than, say, someone who Clifford would have, right?
Yeah.
You lose Clifford's toughness, you bring in Simmons.
That
makes
sense. I would have liked to have him back was Clifford.
Clifford, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he signed for just over $1 million in St. Louis,
for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the 2 years is something that would discourage you.
Yeah.
But Matt Martin, I like him as a fourth line guy right there.
I wouldn't mind Matt Martin either.
Brian
for the
Boyle
Habs, maybe.
is another guy that already played with the Leafs. So... Yeah, no, I'm not too
And
concerned.
Joey Anderson, he has scored some goals in the NHL, but he doesn't have a whole lot of experience.
And I've seen them comparing Joey Anderson to Zach Hyman, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not too worried about the bottom six, to be completely honest.
Yeah. So I'm gonna. So my feeling about the Leafs moving forward. Anyway, feel free to cut me off. I may as well just start with their top six. It's obviously stacked. You got elite talent throughout the top six with Matthews, Marner, Tavares, obviously Nylander as well. And it's Hyman's a great player, 20 to 25 goal scorer.
Very underrated.
So they're going to get the offense from the top six, no question. Add Mikheyev in there maybe. But after that, it gets a little questionable for me. And they have filled in some pieces, but I feel like the losses of Johnsson and Kapanen might be felt fairly hard in the bottom six. And defensively, I'm wondering if, I don't specifically know Jimmy Vesey all that well or Joey Anderson, but could they be liability where they're so young? And Kapanen and Johnsson were they at least had NHL experience.
And they both won at previous levels and all that. I think the biggest thing will be, not if the team succeeds and all that, but just for the bottom six will be what Nick Robertson does. What Nick Robertson does in his first full year training camp. And we were talking about injuries earlier. Kerfoot also broke his jaw in a game in Colorado last year.
Right, he missed a bit of time too.
That's right. So those two are going to be huge driving forces for the bottom six. And if Wayne Simmons can chip in a little bit here and there. The fourth line, I think it would be like Engvall will be there, big body, Jason Spezza. So I don't think you expect too much from the fourth line. Just don't be a liability.
Yeah.
So those two are, if they're the bottom six, if those two can come in and pop in a little, 40 points, 50 points, whatever it may be, that would be a massive.
Right.
That'd be a massive.
Now, before I move on to the defense, they talked about it on Free Agent Frenzy Day recently. The John Tavares signing. We may as well just talk about it. And And I don't know if you saw Craig Button's little thing with
I
Kolyakovo.
seen that.
And I've literally said that exact same thing that Button did to you a couple of years ago. I still believe it, that the John Tavares signing wasn't necessary when you have Matthews, a generational center, coming in, Kadri behind him, who's a very respectable second line center defensively and offensively. He plays with grit. And it's not that, and it really isn't that John Tavares isn't a great player. And to bring in a guy like that you'd pay him, but you didn't have to trade for him or anything like that. A big win at the time, it seemed. But really, for me, the way I looked at it is, why would you pay a free agent $11 million right before all of your young guys are looking for money? And Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and then in the first contract negotiation with Nylander, you kind of let him call your bluff. And then he ends up getting signed before the season starts. And then Marner and Matthews have their way with Dubas as well. And the contracts that have since been signed don't really look that good in a hard salary cap.
The thing that scares me with the Matthews deal is where it takes him right to free agency.
Yeah.
And he might walk to go home, whatever it may be. The one thing with the Maple Leafs, and it's like, I think people understand it, but I think it gets kind of like swept on the rug. None of these guys are bad contracts that you can't move them. I think that gets lost. Because, I mean, you look at Tampa Bay, they said the Patala Johnson on waivers. I mean, Alex Killorn's making 4 point something. Yanni Gord's making 4 point something. Great players. But these guys now, it's kind of like, I mean, you see Tampa right now, they're still having to move people out. The Leafs, I think, signed Tavares, maybe so. But at the time, I don't think anybody knew Kadri would be a number 2 center on a legitimate cup contending team. And even so in Colorado, had a hell of a year last year in Colorado. Yeah. But I think if he has more wingers to support him, I love Nas. I loved him a lot.
I recall him, like, for at least for a portion of a season. I think it was the season before he was traded, or maybe even the season before. He was starting to get mentioned in Selke talks. It never happened where he was raised up in the votes, but I don't know if it was the Toronto media just overhyping him.
It was one of those things where the media really ran with it, where Babcock said something amongst the lines, or if I give Nazem a task, he goes after it.
Right.
So when I put him out there against his top line, I tell him, this is your task, and I want you to dominate, because he felt like he had a role to play. Like I said, at the time, if Barry works out, I don't know if we're having this discussion. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we're acting like Kerfoot, when they talk about that trade, isn't a good player. He's not a great player.
Right.
Like, he's not a superstar. He fits the third round profile
player that you would have had to pay up for.
Yeah. So, and I think at the end of the day, too, is your top 2 center making that much money is whatever. If you do make a trade, and it is Marner for Nylander, you're going to open. There's tons of teams around the league, not tons, but there's teams around the league that have more than 2 guys, 3 guys making $10 million, right? Not so much 3, but 2.
Right.
So if you were to go down that avenue, you would trade Marner eventually, trade Nylander eventually. I don't think
fill out your roster a little bit more.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think the top 2 centers is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Malkin and Crosby in Pittsburgh. I think, what was it, Kopitar and Carter when LA were winning the Cups, Krejci, Bergeron. You need those top 2. If the money could be a little better, of course. But I don't think people sometimes act like these are contracts that can't be moved, like the Patty Marleau one. Yeah. If you're going to move them, and you're also going to get great players in return.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not necessarily...
I brought up something like that where Danault hasn't been signed yet by the Habs. And I personally think Danault is a core piece for the Montreal Canadiens. They need to get him locked up long term, even if eventually Suzuki and Kotkaniemi overtake him. Because eventually when they do, Danault is a very tradable contract.
Who was
Teams
Pittsburgh's
will line up.
Third line center when they won their first cup?
Yeah.
Jordan Staal.
Yeah, so I see what you mean there. Now, the one thing that, like, looking at the Leafs cap outlook kind of long term, dude, your whole top 6 are unrestricted free agents in like 4 or 5 years.
That's the thing. And I mean, at that point, if you win a cup, you win a cup.
Well, are they a cup contender right now?
Well, that's what I'm saying. But if 6 years, if you don't win a cup and these guys leave, are people really going to be mad? You know what I mean? They underachieved. They didn't. Its expectation was the Stanley Cup, and they get these guys and draft them and all put them in lineup. So if they don't win a cup in 6 years,
the fans will be like clamoring for a rebuild, and that's what they'll get, because I don't know what.
Well, a rebuild, retool.
Right.
I mean,
some of them will stay. You would assume some of them will stay.
And if it's worst case scenario, I would hope you would trade them off. Yeah. Opposed to losing for nothing.
Especially Tavares.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. So the defense, I kind of briefly touched on it. Barry's points being removed. TJ Brody comes in. You really just have to hope that TJ Brody signing works out because the contract could be like, I mean, his year last year wasn't that impressive.
I had
but he did have the injury.
Yeah, what was it? A seizure, wasn't it, on the ice?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
something
pretty
along
sure
those
seizure.
lines. Yeah, and then he, lost consciousness.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's really a concern. The Leafs have
I would
a top.
imagine the medical people.
Yeah. But his season in general, if you put that aside, his offensive numbers came down, and I wonder if did Gio lift him a little bit when he was.
Well, I think another thing is too that Calgary, because when you look back at Brody's numbers, I think he went up all the way to like 40-something points. But since that time, I mean, Calgary had Noah Hannafin, who's a good defenseman.
Right.
Rasmus Anderson, a good defenseman. So Calgary's defense has also gotten better. So I think a lot of the offload of his offense. But like I said, in Toronto, I'm not worried about his offense.
Right.
I just need him to play and Leaf fans need to play some defense and just,
big
worry
minutes.
about... Exactly.
Eat up a lot of minutes.
And that's another thing. If he's a legit, and I believe he is a legit top 4 defenseman,
Yeah.
now we can say we have 3, not 4, but 3 legit top 4 defensemen. So we'll see what happens with that going forward. But yeah, I'm not worried about him. I'm really not worried about the TJ Brody deal. Now, maybe down the road, 5 years from now.
Yeah.
But I mean, they'll all be free.
Yeah. Same with Jake Muzzin, because he's signed long term and he's getting paid quite a bit at 5.6. So he's a good defender. How much more of that are you going to get out of him? But these defensemen are interesting. Where if you're elite enough or experienced enough, mature enough, you can age very well, especially a shutdown defenseman.
That's what it is.
So you might get actually full contract value at a Muzzin.
If you know where to be on the ice, you're not skating around extra places and all that stuff.
That was a piece you guys have been looking for so long.
That's
like
the physicality,
physical shutdown, a legit top pair. One.
Well, he was so good until Dubois smashed him from behind there in the playoffs.
Yeah,
like he was so good in the first 3 games there, 4 games. That was a tough loss for them. But yeah, like I said, and if they all start declining 3, 4, 5 years from now, the whole team's almost being a free agent at that point anyway, right?
So what about the goaltending? You got Freddie Anderson signed for 1 more season. This is kind of this will be interesting how Dubas handles this.
This is Freddie's last season.
Yeah,
he's not coming back.
There's no money for him.
So I don't know if the hope is that Jack Campbell can hold the fort down until you figure out. I don't know.
Like, are they gonna I mean, if the Leafs aren't in a playoff spot heading into the season, you got to move them. But if they are in a playoff spot, you're keeping them, and then you end up losing them for nothing.
Now, I mean, the goalie market last year, but I think Darcy Klumper's available next year. I mean,
he's incredible.
And he's 1 more year, and he's cheaper, I believe, next year than Freddie is this year.
Yeah, but he could get a big contract. He is.
But if you have to trade a first rounder to have him for 1 year as your starter,
right,
and then try to,
gotcha.
Because I think Arizona, I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, but Jack Campbell's a good backup for them.
Yeah,
and Freddie Anderson. Yeah. Freddie, I don't know. The thing with me, with my thought on it, if Freddie Anderson leaves, it took the Leafs so long to get that elite goaltender. So, how are you going to find a guy that handled the pressure in Toronto as well as Anderson, put up the numbers he did? I know, he hasn't been clutch in the playoffs,
that's
but
what it is.
He's been ridden very heavily by the Leafs.
That's a good point, because last year
by then,
that's what a lot of it was.
Yeah,
was a lot of people was wondering, is he just gassed? So this year, I'm assuming Cam was going to play, if they play a whole 82 game season, somewhere in the 30 mark. Like, I would assume for sure, because chances are they're going to play a condensed schedule. So there's going to be a lot of back-to-backs, maybe 3 and 4.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. So my problem with Freddie is Freddie doesn't necessarily play bad in the playoffs. Like, by no means does he play bad. His numbers were great against Columbus. But you watch Carey Price. There's times where Carey Price just wills the puck. The puck is not going past the goal line.
No.
Right? I mean, last year, what was it? The Leafs were down 1-0, and then he gives that goal from below the circles to make it 2-0 Columbus in Game 5. And that's pretty... You just need the goalie that's come... And, it's not necessarily not fair, because, like you said, his defense isn't the greatest, and he's had better defense in front of him. But, I don't know. This is definitely Freddie's last year's Maple Leaf. I don't see how he could possibly be back next year with their cap situation.
Unless he takes this exact same contract, which why would he?
Well, the cap's not going to go up next year.
His cap's not going to go up, but his comparables would be...
Well, you're going to have teams like Carolina, would beg for a goalie like him.
Yeah.
Just die for a goalie like him.
Yeah.
Islanders maybe. I mean, there's...
Someone will throw bank at him.
Edmonton. Edmonton
Yeah.
has no goalie answer. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't. This will be his last, I'm
Right.
assuming, his year with the Maple Leaf.
Yeah, so overall, I think Kyle Dubas has done a good job. I'm not so me personally. I almost feel like the Leafs may have taken a little step back here in terms of their roster, but they could overcome, especially with more defensive ability on the back end and less injuries. If they stay healthy, that could be huge for them. Got to see, maybe Anderson is even better for them this year with
Less
an
time,
improved
less games
defense, less
played.
time,
Yeah.
with a full season of Jack Campbell. But it'll be interesting. Maybe we can talk later on after we go through the Habs how we feel like both teams are going to match up. But
Compare.
why don't you give me a prediction of how you think the Leaf season is going to go in general?
Tampa Bay. We don't know. We don't. Stanley Cup hangover to start the year, maybe. I don't know what they're going to field next year in terms of who's going to be on that team.
Right.
I don't know if Steven Stamkos could be on that team.
Right.
I feel like ideally they would love to move him. They just want to cup without him. They probably don't need his
Yeah.
$8-9 million cap hit.
Yeah.
The Bruins, I thought for sure, and I mean there's still lots of time left. I thought for sure we're going to get a second line winger or second line something to help out that top line.
Yeah.
Boston, I mean, I tell you,
Yeah.
I'm not sold on Boston. I think the Leafs could get home ice in the first round.
Home ice, which would mean they
Would finish first and second in the division.
Okay. Well, that's quite
First
optimistic.
or second in the.
Wow.
I'm telling you, and that might be because other teams may not be as good as they were last year, or maybe
I laugh, but the Leafs are an incredibly strong regular season team.
I mean, we laugh
because of
yeah.
Anderson, because of their top six, because of Riley on the back end getting that offense. So
another thing too is like the Leafs have been made fun of, rightfully so. I mean, they have underachieved. I mean, you lose series to the Bruins in 7 games that go on, almost win the cup against St. Louis. I think last year was the factor that really pissed a lot of Maple Leaf fans off losing to Columbus. So yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Well, it's a new Kyle Dubas might be moving away from his, theory of hold the puck back, keep possession, not believing in the extra grit, which we kind of saw when he brought in Clifford. Yeah, those intangibles really are important. You and I are, old school hockey fans. We both love that style of the game, right?
Absolutely.
And it is important. Hockey, like no other sport, in my opinion, is as much of a team sport. There's no team sport like hockey. Like it's all about the team. You have to have strong pieces and strong roles all throughout the lineup. And so I like that Dubas might be moving away from that the style that got him success in juniors and the NHL.
It's a little different.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah, there's big boys in the NHL.
Yeah. So why don't we move on to the Habs here? I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Part 2 has already been filmed and edited. It will be released on the YouTube channel on Thursday. Of course, if you like these videos from the Scotian Canadian channel, hit the subscribe button, the like button, and of course the bell for notifications. And you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Scotian Canadian. Cheers, guys.